Can't get very far without making a comment on coronavirus, which, as you probably know, is everywhere on the media at the moment. I was reminded of this because I started to sing a little of a song I did on, I think it was the Christmas and New Year one. I couldn't even remember then what it was, but some of the words are Corona, Gloria Solis, and then I thought, oh, Corona, people think I'm talking about the virus. I'm not talking about a crown that the sun wears. But anyway, that aside, people wonder sometimes how sickness relates to folklore, and it's a very interesting one. I heard I think it was the Deputy Chief Medical Officer being interviewed and said, sort of almost jokingly about the coronavirus outbreak, that the virus is out to get as many people as it can. And you can't help, when you hear someone say that, as visualising it as some dark, mysterious, evil, shadowy thing that's out to get us. And in fact, that is exactly how we would have seen it in earlier times. When you think back to the days of bubonic plague in the 17th century and the Black Death in I think it was the 14th century, yeah, something like that. Anyway, I'm not too clear on the dates, but the Black Death swept across everywhere and just killed most people, and then the effects, the symptoms were pretty awful as far as I understand. But people would have thought, if they were religious in any way, that probably God had sent this upon them because they'd done something wrong. And people, more tribal people who got to know of it, would say probably it's the fault of people going against nature. Now that sort of rings a bell, doesn't it? Because if you asked me what I think is at the root of the cause of coronavirus, I would say one word: civilization. As soon as we begin to civilize ourselves, in the sense that we break up tribal community and we end up with smaller units which are governed by a central government, and etc., etc. You know what the civilized way of living is about, because you live with it every day. As soon as we do that, we are making ourselves quite vulnerable to all sorts of things that are, in effect, anti-nature. So, and this is proved over and over again, because when you look at some of the pre-colonized nations, if you like, across the world, they rarely got ill. Nobody got ill. If you got anything wrong with you, it was usually influence sent by the stars, and it was something that you had as a psychological problem. And I mean, they didn't call it psychology then, but they would call it spirit and shadow. But that's effectively what it was. And you could become paralysed with fear, and then you might be called a zombie. And these things were serious. You know, these things were quite serious. The mullah, as we call it in the Romany culture, could attack you, and then you'd run for your life. But it was all stuff that was to do with the spirit, and to do with shadow, and to do with psychology. And really, the bottom line with all this is, although a sickness as bad as coronavirus can be caused in a more physical way, and we think the causes are physical, and you know, it has a physical outcome, death, you know, if you don't take care of yourself, or if you're vulnerable, etc., etc. Underlying that, there is still that element of we are doing something that goes against nature. We weren't designed to do this. Humans weren't designed to do this by nature. We weren't designed to live in a civilized way. We designed ourselves to live in a civilized way. And that's a very different thing. You wouldn't get any animals or birds designing a civilized life so that they can, have a penthouse suite at the top of their tree, or you know what I mean. If we design life ourselves, then it's bound to go against nature. We have to live quite rigidly with nature if we want to stay healthy. And of course we can't do that today because we've already created the civilized life. We've been colonized over thousands of years and it's not possible now. But we can still ask these questions. We can still kind of think about what the root cause is, because if we do, we might just help ourselves understand it all a little more and see what the faults are in global society, because it is global. It's bound to be global. We reach out with social media, we reach out across the globe. We are a global nation, if you like. The civilized people are, anyway. So I like to look at it as this person said, something that's out to get as many of us as it can. I like to see it as a shadow. And I like to see combating that shadow by understanding what it's all about. Now, we can't just cure everything just by understanding. We've still got to take the measures that they tell us to take and everything else, because we are living in a civilized life. But if we think about this a little more, this dark, evil shadow that's out to get us, and we see it in a sort of a human form, if you like, because we've created this thing. Even if they say it's been created by animals, as they do with most viruses, most flu viruses and outbreaks, they always say, oh, it all started with animals. It started because they all got infected and they passed the thing on to us. It's us that's got the problems. Humans have got the problems because humans are the ones that treat animals in a bad way. We don't respect animals, and it's like the animals are going, ha-ha, we're getting back at you now. We're giving you something to think about because you've been cruel to us, so we'll get back at you. Yeah, well, all these things, you see, we have to think of all these things. We can't just think that whatever humans do, whether it's to animals or whether it's to each other or whether it's to the natural world, that it's okay. There are going to be repercussions. There's going to be something that comes back and clouts us on the head and says, look, this isn't right. You're going against the grain. You're going against nature. Anything natural, we must never think that we can go against it and get away with it. So yeah, it's a huge, bloody great shadow that we're dealing with, and it's global, and it's stomping across the earth and saying, you caused this, humans. You started it. If you hadn't civilized everybody thousands of years ago, then you would be getting this. We've had all sorts of diseases, we have wars, we have everything. Is the civilized way of living actually good? I don't think so. Do you? But we're stuck with it. We've got to do the best we can with it. But just try to understand. Just think about the folkloric elements of it. And think about what it used to mean to tribal people a long time ago. And understand how psychologically we all affect each other in many, many different ways. Anyway, just a few thoughts there on this, and yeah, I'll see you again very soon, probably with a slightly different subject. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye.